Welcome back, everybody, to the Who's Accountable podcast. My name is Mahaya Abdul Kawi. I am the host and creator of this platform, as well as a founder and representative of the Accountability Party for Human Rights. Who I am and what this organization is, we are, myself included, a collection of individuals who have adapted the lifestyle of accountability through a process of awareness, acceptance, and adaptability. Each individual is on a path to becoming something more for themselves and for their communities. And it is these individuals, this collection of individuals, that we are able to use our skills and knowledge and resources to provide a greater service and resources for the working class people across this country. On this platform, it is an opportunity for myself and other members of the party to really highlight and discuss those individuals who are actively trying to suppress the working class people of this country, who every day find new ways and new means to keep them down. For those who have seen previous videos, for those who are just coming in, we stand for the working class people. This information that I am sharing in these videos is strictly to give the people an opportunity, a chance to take what they can and prepare themselves. I don't want to consider this as a news channel or anything of the sorts. It's more so to bring up topics for discussion that can help you operate in a society that on every level was set up to make your life difficult, to make it so that you can't achieve a livelihood that is successful for your merits, and to allow you to have full access to the human rights you were blessed with the minute you were born. So that is what myself and this organization is our main mission. Work on ourselves to help other people. This podcast is to shine a light on those who we are going up against. Now, with that out of the way, I'd like to thank those who are coming back. I'd like to thank those who are just now tuning in. Thank you for sharing your time. I hope you subscribe, like the video, come back for more. The topic for today's video, what I would like to talk about, is a topic that was and is still a conversation, but it received a lot of national attention in the middle of last month of June 2021. The reason why I'm going to talk about it now is because it's come back up on my radar through a video that appeared on my YouTube feed. And I just wanted to share another perspective on this topic, which is critical race theory. Now, critical race theory was a concept that was made or developed by Derek Bell, Kimberly Crenshaw, and others that worked at, I believe, the school or so, or the law firm. I believe they were teachers or lawyers or some professional organization. It was a way for others to look for ways that racism still played a part within law and policy of the United States after the Civil Rights Acts of 1964 and 1965. It was a new way of looking for long-term problems fueled by a systematic racist society. And with this perspective, it was to be used to find long-term solutions that by removing the race aspect from them once you were able to isolate that race was a main factor in why this happened to you. something that was for the time period of the mid 60s, at a moment in history where in a modern sense you had a coalition, sometimes spoken, sometimes unspoken, between groups, individuals, mostly blacks, Afro-Americans, Latino Americans, Hispanics. There was coalitions to fight for rights in this country. But what it was also was a fight for human rights. The whole purpose for critical race theory was to simply highlight, in a time when there was change, when there was promised change from the government to these leaders, to the people at mass, that we will protect your American and your human rights. Critical race theory was a response to that sixth sense I believe we all have in sensing the bullshit that they were spewing to us. So at the time, it was important because it was blatantly obvious that the masses, that the oppressed people were being lied to, because you had laws passed, but we're still struggling to live a normal life where my existence is a problem. But fast forward to 2021, critical race theory has been like every other grassroots movement, because I would call critical race theory a movement. It's an ideology. It has been pimped out by the political and corporate elites as a way to distract. And for those who watch this that are in favor of critical race theory and who may get upset with me saying that it has now become a distraction, please watch my previous videos where I break down that this is nothing more than a class war. It is not a race war. Race was used as a tool. And I will bring this history point up every single time it needs to be brought up. But in the original 13 colonies, you had two sides, very much like how you do today. There were the elites that were coming from Europe who were using their status from another continent and influencing it on a brand new land where they had freedom to exercise power in ways that was unchecked. You're in a new land. The equivalent to that would be to go to Mars, where, yeah, we've come from a place on Earth where there's democracy, but on Mars there's nothing there except for our unspoken pact that we're going to uphold democracy. So you have that happening in America in the 1600s. Unchecked land, where all the rules from Europe only really apply because it's the unspoken pact. But did they follow that? No. It was freedom. But you had this surge of wrong power that triggered a response from all the poor European servants who came over on the ships with them, who were treated just as bad as the African slaves who were brought over from Africa, who were treated just as bad as the Native Americans whose land was stolen. And these three forces combined, when you take a step back, you don't even need to take a step back. When you're being beaten on by somebody, when you're being treated by dirt, it can feel lonely. So all you have to do is really take a moment to look around and see who else is being treated the same way. And when you do that, you might find that you have a deeper connection with people that you never thought that you had before. And that's what happened. It wasn't a matter of, oh, I'm white from Europe, I can't work with the African from Europe, or I can't work with the Native American who's from this land that I was brought to. We were all being treated the same. The common denominator was oppression. Racism was created as a way to separate. So when I say critical race theory is a distraction, it is being used to keep the people separate, because you condition the Afro-American mind to find racism in every aspect of society. And yes, there is systematic racism. There was laws passed fueled with the backings of racist pseudoscience. But that's only because blacks were the poster child, still are the poster child, to classism. Because when you think about poor class, you don't really think of white people or maybe Asians. But the reality is there are. And it's not spoken up about because they would rather paint the image that it's only black and brown people. But the reality is a lot of people across racial lines are all in the same boat as they were 400 years ago. And critical race theory keeps Afro-Americans in the mindset that this is just race. It doesn't allow them to expand further to see that this is a class-based system, and that I have more in common with my Asian, Latino, and white brother who's also poor as fuck, who's also living off the government from the last year. We have more in common than we do separated. You can't talk race without talking class. But the modern critical race theory stops at race. So I don't have a problem with them teaching it in schools. My problem is the reason why you have so many young black and brown kids growing up and blaming the world, saying, oh, it's race this and race that. You didn't teach them at all once that because of the class you were born in, this society has set up rules to make sure that you stay in your class and that you never, ever have a taste of how we live. And even if you do, if you become a rapper, you're an athlete, you're still their pawn in some form of way. You're not an independent. So the only time you can really truly enjoy that is when you're our entertainment pawn. It's not because you specifically are black. It's because you come from a class system that sees you the same way they see rednecks in some Midwestern country as a laborer. You're cattle. It doesn't matter what racial side you choose to be on. The side they put you on is at the bottom of the barrel. In critical race theory, it's also become a social justice warrior talking point. Social justice warriors are those who live in the current sense of the world that we are in. It's individuals who feel obligated. It's mostly liberals. And if you are somebody of the working class who feeds into the mentality, you've only been conditioned by what's right to say instead of standing up for truth and what is right. This SJW liberal approach wants to apply it to everything. But that's the illusion. It's because they pass it off on gays, on Hispanics. Oh, because I'm gay, or because I'm black, or because I'm this, I cannot achieve anything more. But they never want to tell you that you can achieve it. It's just going to be fucking hard. We would rather, and we being the American system, would rather you fall into the victim mentality and become dependent on people saving you from your constant fear state of mind than for you to have the balls and the courageousness to step up over all these challenges, systematic or not, and take charge of your own life. The only way that we can rise up is if we believe in ourselves. And that was the real power behind the Nation of Islam. Even though I am a Sunni Muslim, I respect the nation for what they were able to do for black Americans at the time. They changed the thinking and got them out of the victim mentality and introduced them to a place, to a world, to a lifestyle where they can achieve something more because they was able to see their own value. When you start blaming everything like that, there's a difference between becoming aware that, okay, there's laws in place that are set up against me because of my skin color. Like, that one understanding has two different paths. You can take that and move forward knowing, you know what? I got a lot of bad guys to fight. But guess what? I'm still going to fight. Or you go the other path that's pretty much fueling the ego of society. Oh, everything is against me. Me. And what happens when you live in a victim mentality? You're more prone to fall. You're more prone to never succeed if you always think the world is out to get you. To always think, oh, you know what? There's no chance. Systematically, there is a 0% chance. Like, you don't even give yourself the credit of giving yourself 5 or 10%. There's a 0% chance that I can become something in life. And unfortunately, society uses, they use these methods like critical race theory, feminism, even, as a way to keep people stuck as a victim. You're dependent. Because once you are, you can't fight. And if you can't fight the system that's keeping you there in the first place. It's yeah, and it's that thing where I have nothing against what critical race theory was intended for. The same way I can look back on American history and truly understand what the founding fathers were trying to achieve when they wrote the Constitution and made this country. Although I may not personally agree with them as individuals and what they have done, but I understand their mission. So I understand the mission of critical race theory. But it's like, you know, how can we even thrive if we keep ourselves in this mentality, if we can't even speak up on something? And you see people abusing it. Something that was supposed to help the individual people get a chance of understanding and to push themselves. It's become pimped out, man. Political power. Obama, for example, he knows for a fact that he can't, that people can't talk bad about him, because the minute you do, you're racist. It takes away the fact that, like, you have those that defend him, and he eats it up because he's a very egotistical man. Obama's just soaking all in. If you say something about Obama, you're racist. Why am I racist? Because he's a bad person? I'm sorry, but there can be evil black people. Look at those who betrayed Malcolm X, Fred Hampton. It was people with that looked like them that sold their souls. You know, and it's interesting because the origins of it, again, it was started as a way to understand where these challenges lie. And on top of that, it was the Supreme Court at the time was trying to find why there would be those who would join communism at the time, who would be a part of the mission. You had black World War II veterans who were coming back to the United States after killing Europeans and getting respect over there for their mission and for their cause, coming back home to be treated disrespectfully, if not like an animal, when they just came from being treated like a fucking warrior. And the industrialization of trying to turn the South into a modern era of the country, these factors, by the time the 60s came around, it was like, how can we understand people more, but not understand them more where we help them become more? How can we understand them so that way we can influence and control things? And that's where we are today. In critical race theory, again, I don't have anything wrong with it, and I think it ultimately comes down onto who teaches it, because there are those who are aware of what it is and what it has become, who will tell you the truth. And then there are those where, in the past month, we saw people arguing about putting it in schools, but the people who were trying to defend it and put it in schools are on a liberal agenda. So I don't trust you teaching, the kids of the next generation this information when you're creating more victims. I don't know, man. Inshallah that people really fight for truth, no matter what theory you're teaching. It's important and all that, especially if you're gonna be teaching kids, that they understand like the roots of it, and they're capable of applying it with their own well-known knowledge instead of being forced this, spoon-fed. Because we can't afford to have the next generation be victims. There's too much